Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Tim Burton's Dark Shadows in 2012. This is the 15th, I believe, Tim Burton film directed by him, and it's 2012, and of course stars Johnny Depp, Helena Bonham Carter, and Eva Green is in this film, and you've got a few others, Chloë Grace Moretz, and this is another Tim Burton review, and I didn't get it on Blu-ray. Because I want to get some other Tim Burtons and money and everything. But I got this voucher for Sky basically, and I thought there's loads of films on there that are better than Dark Shadows probably will be, but they're ones I've seen. I want to get on Blu-ray for the better quality and stuff like that. So I thought to resume my kind of Tim Burton director series, why not get Dark Shadows? So I've got this on Sky, and I just thought I'll watch it tonight, and this film is not acclaimed. 6.2 on IMDb, and actually 30 something on Rotten Tomatoes. And it's just quite panned actually. It didn't do well at the box office really, and just it's one of the 2010s from Tim Burton films, and they're the ones that really are the most panned, you could say, overall. And most people kind of say that Tim Burton really has got worse and worse. And from what I see, maybe there's a pattern really that this century, as soon as the century really turned, he kind of went massively downhill. But Sweeney Todd is definitely not a bad film, and I'll review that at some point. I'm going to rewatch it. I did like Corpse Bride. I thought that was a fine film, a good film, but it had a lot of issues. And I've also seen, of course, the Planet of the Apes remake, which was a complete disgrace for me. And then the Charlie and Chocolate Factory, the remake of Willy Wonka. One of my most hated films as a kid. And I just really hated that film. But maybe it won't be quite as bad as I remembered. From what I see, I think Tim Burton really is at an all-time kind of. It's a shame. It really is a shame because what he was last century, definitely. Clearly was a great director. Edward Scissorhands, one of my absolute 50 favourite films of all time. I think it's a genius film, one of the best. I actually like it even more than another film from that year, Goodfellas. That's how much I like it. I think as well, Sleepy Hollow is a really underrated masterpiece. And I've not seen Ed Wood actually. I've not seen Beetlejuice. I've never seen Beetlejuice. I have seen the Batman films and stuff, but Tim Burton, when he's on form, is a great director, truly great. But really, it's a shame to see this. Is it bad? This film, is it as bad as the critics say? And is it, really fans as well? Pretty much. For me, I think it's not an awful film, but it is certainly underwhelming. Definitely a film that doesn't really know what to be and never comes together. In a way that is Tim Burton's vision, that's for sure. And it is a film with a lot of flaws, and definitely didn't like it. Wow, a lot of the film isn't. It's just it's a shame. And the basic plot of this film is basically Johnny Depp plays this character of Barnabas Collins, and it's 18th century Maine, and he basically portrays this character played by Eva Green of Angelique, and she basically curses him. He turns into a vampire, and he basically is sealed eventually in this coffin. You see all this in the prologue, and it's kind of gets sealed in this coffin, and he's left there to kind of be cursed by her. And 2 centuries later, he wakes up in 1972. It was, and basically very quickly he goes to his old family kind of mansion, and his descendants are there, and basically finding them, and as well, Eva Green's character is still around, and it creates loads of drama, and you've got loads of weird things going on there. This film is hard to describe really by the plot, but at the beginning as well, after the prologue, you kind of see this character of Victoria, played by Bella Heathcote, and this character Victoria, quite a young woman in it, and she basically is I'm not too sure, but she basically goes to be the governess of this boy called David, who's part of their family. It's like a 10-year-old, and basically she becomes as well a love interest to Barnabas, played by Johnny Depp, and yeah, you've got that going on. She kind of, I thought she was going to be the main protagonist, really at the beginning. And you got this scene where she's traveling to this place, where it's mainly set, and you've got this kind of really quite. I was basically sure that she was going to be the main protagonist. She kind of disappeared at times a lot, and then it kind of flipped back to Johnny Depp, and really he was the main protagonist for the rest of the film. Eva Green comes back into it quite a lot, and you basically got like this family kind of weird, bizarre family stuff going on. You've kind of got this love triangle. Although you could just say as well, there's someone else involved in there. Helena Bonham Carter is basically as well. Does stuff with Johnny Depp's character. Yeah, it's all very weird, and even weirder, guys. Everyone, if you've not seen the film, this is basically a vampire comedy film, romance. And it's not. It doesn't sound great if someone didn't do this well, and it isn't done well. So it is one of the most bizarre films I've ever seen. That's for sure. Certainly at times. You've got Jonny Lee Miller in there as well. He's a great actor. In this, he's not really given much to do, but he's in the family. And Michelle Pfeiffer as well. She has a role in the film, big role. And yeah, it's basically, it kind of. The prologue is probably the best part, you could say. And after that, it really does become, mostly throughout the entire film, weak, at times bad. It's a real shame, and it's something that, as a fan, really, of the best of Burton I've seen. Edward Scissorhands is such a film that I've seen since I was a kid, and rewatching it recently, after many years. It is one of my 50 favourite films. I think it's so perfect. It's something that can make a fan of Tim Burton cry almost. It's so sad to see that he has gone this low, and this is based off of a TV series, I believe. So again, it's kind of you could say it's kind of a remake, slash reworking, which is usually his worst stuff. Let's face it. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I don't like that film, and I never will. Then you've got as well Planet of the Apes, which really off memory that could easily be the worst Tim Burton. Even if I see a lot of the other ones. And of course, Alice in Wonderland and stuff like that I've not seen. It's just, of course he's doing Dumbo soon, which is a live action remake of a classic Disney film. It kind of gets worse and worse, doesn't it? And it's just, I really think Tim Burton should go back to what he was doing, with films like Edward Scissorhands and kind of Sleepy Hollow and all this stuff. And just clearly a much better director there. He has got so much talent. It's just. I just don't think it's working at all, and it's quite clear. Of course, Corpse Bride was good, and nothing more really. And I suppose Sweeney Todd was kind of a rarity, really, amongst a lot of other Tim Burtons that have come out this century, really. But yeah, basically, is this film, is it kind of a good comedy, for what it's trying to be, and kind of does it have good horror elements in there? Because Tim Burton, of course, known for his gothic. Films, pretty much every one of his films are gothic, in some way. And, of course he has his regular pairings as well. But is it good, as a horror? And is it also got a good comedy in there? No, not at all. It's really quite shocking, actually. The comedy, pretty much never works. And really you could say that Johnny Depp, it's just his performance, and, everyone. It's not the actual writing, of the character. Because really, Johnny Depp's performance, he's got charisma, he's got some sort of quirk, to it. He has kind of a weirdness, not in a Edward Scissorhands great way, it's not like that. It's not like a sympathetic, weird character in that way, unique, but one that you fully commit to, you care to root for, and all this kind of stuff, and is thoroughly human. It's more of a showy one, and one that is mainly bizarre and kind of. It's intriguing, what Johnny Depp does. The character's not written well, but basically, it's he kind of there's loads of comedy going on in the film, and it just never really lands. Apart from maybe unintentional from Johnny Depp, but it's a performance that really, if he wasn't in the film, it would have been a lot worse, I can tell you. And this character of Barnabas Collins, he just basically. He is very inconsistent, and I never really knew what to feel, for his character throughout the film, really. it's an up and down character. You know, at moments he's killing people, innocent, and then he's kind of. It seems like you know, Burton was trying to go for a kind of sympathetic kind of you know, take on it. You know, and you know, as well, you know, I'd say the comedy, you know, I've clearly said it doesn't really work at all. It just kind of you know, to kind of go further, I'd say it doesn't land most of the time. It's one of them films that just, it's not you know, gross out comedy, but it just, it does try a lot, and then it just uncomfortably, you know, fails. You know, it's one of them where, you know, it may be a bit more subtle than a lot of comedies, but it just doesn't work. You know, it doesn't really get the laughs. It just seems very uncomfortable. And you know, as I say, Depp, you know, gives something with that, and it's kind of unintentional, you could say. But really, comedy throughout the entire film just doesn't work. You know, it's not dreadful comedy. You know, it just doesn't you know, doesn't achieve it. You know what it's trying to do. So it just doesn't hit the mark. The horror, you know, in this film, as I've said, you know. Burton is known for this kind of gothic atmosphere that he always brings to the table. The tension, you know, that he really did achieve in so many of his films. In so many moments of his, you know, best films I've seen. You know, Sleepy Hollow is a perfect example of a comedy horror that really, you know, it really is just, it achieves on both fronts throughout the entire film. And it's achieved through atmosphere, and, you know, there's tension in there as well. This one has got really underwhelming horror elements. You know, it's just, the moment where Depp, you know, Johnny Depp, his character Barnabas, comes out of the coffin, I was just thinking, wow, is this made by Tim Burton? You know, and you know, because it's just so underwhelming. It was just so bad, that scene. I was just thinking, wow, that just did not, you know, it just didn't feel like a Tim Burton. The atmosphere wasn't there. You know, it's very rushed. The way he just took them all down, and you know, just not well done. You know, I think the way this film's shot is one of the things that, you know, brings it up slightly, but overall, you know, the action in the film is not really well put together. Editing isn't great, but the way it's shot is very, you know, think of Edward Scissorhands. You know, you've kind of got the, just the masterful cinematography, and, you know, it has got, at times, darker colour tones, but then you've also got the kind of vivid colours, and, you know, just Tim Burton always really commits, you know, with the films I've seen, you know, with his cinematography, you know, and everything, the lighting, the way he wants, you know, the film to look is very distinct. And this film, it feels dark, but in a way where it's kind of just washed out, and it feels dull, you know, instead of actually dark and gothic. And it just isn't well lit, really, for the most part. It just has this really weird and kind of just, you know, mediocre kind of look to it, and that's not great. You know, even the visuals aren't that good in this film. You know, the cinematography at times, the way it moves the camera and everything, you know, is solid. But again, it's very underwhelming. So, yeah, but they're not bad. It's just, it's not, this isn't Tim Burton. You know, his visuals, certainly not his level of that. And, you know, even, of course, Corpse Bride, you know, it has really good visuals and stuff. You know, all the Tim Burtons I've seen up until this have got good visuals. Maybe you could say Planet of the Apes doesn't, but yeah, basically, the horror and, you know, and the kind of atmosphere, the gothicness, isn't really present here. So even that, you know, isn't anything I can praise, really. And yeah, the characters in this film, first of all, they're boring most of the time. They're just very bizarre, but in a bad way. You know, it's nothing I can praise the uniqueness of it. It's just because it's obscure, you know, for the sake of being obscure, I think. And it just is a bit really cringy at times, and just, yeah, it is bizarre. And Chloë, you know, Grace Moretz, really gives a bad performance for me, I feel. Unfortunately, you know, she's just not good. Very off, you know, and Michelle Pfeiffer is not bad in the film, but her character, you know, the writing throughout this film is just not strong. And basically, you know, her character isn't great. So, you know, the performances are fine in the film, Helena Bonham Carter and Michelle Pfeiffer, and even, you know, Johnny Depp mostly. You know, it just isn't really allowed to go anywhere because of the script and the actual characters, the way they're written. You know, just it is weak, the script, I feel, and you know, the music as well is by Danny Elfman, the score, and it's not, you know, it's not anything that really stands out, unfortunately. Of course, you know, as well, they've got actual songs of the time period in the film, and you've got Alice Cooper in the film as well, you know, literally, as well as his music, which is bizarre. Now, you know, the film kind of, what it tries to do as well and fails, you've got these characters and everything, and they're not compelling really for the most part at all. It's quite boring for the first half. But really, what it tries to do is kind of use the kind of the ideas of this ancient vampire coming into the modern world, 1972, and just use it as comedy, and it kind of just it doesn't work. It's just dumb. I would say it is stupid and just made me really just think this is not working. It's not funny. It really isn't funny, when an ancient vampire, played by Johnny Depp, he's such a good actor, and just, you've got so much talent here. But he's played by him, and it's kind of, this decent prologue, it does have some stuff going for it. And then he shows up, and he's kind of, he looks, and there's a McDonald's sign, and all this. It's just really, I was just thinking, is this what it's going to be? Is this all we could have done with it? It's just, in that sense, it's very lazy, I feel. It really is, and it's just a real shame that I'm saying that. But it is lazy, and it kind of just, it's just that kind of bad modern stuff that comes into comedies. Just he's doing it, and he's kind of undermining what it could have been really good. I think on this occasion it could have just been a horror film, kind of romance instead of a comedy as well. Because it just really ruins the horror, and then it has some good costumes as well, but really this film is really, really, it's very borderline weak and bad. And I'll reveal what I actually have decided, at the end of the in a few minutes at the end of the review. But basically, it is a very, very underwhelming Tim Burton. It's kind of the final act as well just really becomes quite bizarre. Even by the film standards, really he just fails in the final act. It's a mess, it's all over the place tonally, and stupid moments, the moments at the end of this, and Eva Green throughout this film, unfortunately, is bad. A bad performance. That's a real shame. The character of Angelique, as well, I just really don't know what he was doing here with the characters of these two, the romance that's kind of coming back, I didn't know what to feel at all, because I don't think this was fully thought out, really. How they were going to go about it. It just, the way it came off in this film, just didn't work. The tone was all over the place. And the way it was kind of flipping back as well. This just didn't work. As well, you got quite a couple of different colour tones to the film, the kind of locations and stuff. And it's not like Edward Scissorhands, where they are very, you could say it kind of, it's meant to kind of be a very distinct visual change, from when the castle kind of, scenes, and then, that the actual, suburbia town. It kind of is very, very distinct, but it kind of makes this perfect and wonderful parallel, between the two, and it makes many different parallels there, and it kind of explores the different themes and everything through that as much as everything else, and it just comes together perfectly with that, and it's meant to kind of it's just so well thought through and everything, but it just kind of feels abrupt, in terms of that. It's the different locations, and the style, and just doesn't fit, and it just kind of feels like a different film at times, visually, and never is this film visually wowing at all. So yeah, I'll kind of wrap up. The final act as well. Yes, is what's brought this film down to a 39% for me. I think it was mostly weak, and I was thinking, everyone's pretty much on point with this, when most people say, the critics and everyone, even the fans, it's just not good. Maybe not an awful film, and it still wasn't. But, I think the final act, what happens there is just a barrage of kind of different things going on there, action sequences and everything. When the police are involved as well, and it just doesn't work really for me at all. And, the stupid moments where, involving the werewolf, I'm not going to say who turns into a werewolf, but wow, it's just really, really bad, that bit. And, that was probably the worst bit of the film, the final act, the kind of the last 10 minutes. And yeah, it just doesn't come together to anything that I really knew what to feel at all. It wasn't very clear. It's kind of just all over the place. This film, I think, is just into that bad mark. It's not really, really bad, and I think the things to praise, at times, not to praise, but the visuals aren't bad. The costumes are good, definitely, and the actual kind of set of this mansion is good. But just as well. Johnny Depp, it's not really praised by his standards, but it's just his performance is kind of interesting. It's intriguing. It kept my attention, kind of thing. It was somewhat compelling, and I don't think the script was anything to kind of really kind of feel anything consistently for this character. But Depp kind of brought what he could with the kind of different things that were going on, constantly changing character, and he did make it kind of at times somewhat compelling. Michelle Pfeiffer as well, and kind of Helena Bonham Carter they were good in the film, okay, but again, nothing to really go by for them by the script. Jonny Lee Miller was just he was there again. It's hard with a film that's not got good script at all. It's got a bad script. Because you've got really good talent here. Even Christopher Lee, in his, I think it was his 200 film performance really actually at this point, and he appears in the film, but again just wasted. But that was more of kind of cameo than anything. But really, got really good talent here, and Danny Elfman as well, stuff, and Tim Burton. It's just of course potentially an absolutely brilliant director. It just doesn't really amount to anything, and it just I think a lot of the time just fails quite a lot with its comedy, and with its whole narrative. It was just all over the place really for me, and the horror could have been so much better, and the actual atmosphere and everything just wasn't that strong, and basically the prologue, I think this was quite present, it was kind of there and stuff, but the actual bulk of the film, what they were going for, how it was executed, most of the characters really, it just it does fail, mostly, or it's just definitely under par. So doing the maths, the maths that I always do, and kind of my actual afterthoughts as well of the final act, which was just mental, insane. I have to say it's a bad film. It's not an awful one, and check it out. Maybe you'll like it, but I didn't like it. I didn't hate it, but I definitely didn't like it, and just it was quite boring at times because just nothing really too compelling. It wasn't confident really. In terms of filmmaking, in terms of the script, it was very very much a weak script for the most part, and you have some. That's what really I would praise, some decent slash performances, but and some of the visuals. Again, combine that with the kind of the fact that it does have some human moments here and there. It's not an awful film, but it does so much wrong, and it just misses so much opportunities. And I just didn't really connect to this overall narrative, and it didn't achieve the comedy with this kind of genre, which is very hard to do, but still, it just didn't achieve it. And, it was very, very underwhelming, in terms of the action and everything. And just the characters, so I think it's just into that bad mark, and I really do think that that's a fair rating. It's just, it was mostly weak. As I say, the final act really let it down. It would have been low fours, for me, out of 10, kind of 40%, something like that. It did dip again, and, just... Yeah, thanks for watching my review, and hopefully, the next Tim Burton will be a better one than this. It's pretty much for me, personally. And of course, fine if you like the film or love it, but for me it is as bad as most people say, and just, it's really sad to see this with Tim Burton. I just really wanted to go back to his masterful days, clearly what it was. Just a shame, it's a real shame that he's reunited with these. Just a couple months ago I saw Edward Scissorhands, one of the best, the peak really for me of his pairing with Johnny Depp, and you see Johnny Depp in this film, again you see Helena Bonham Carter, you see Christopher Lee as well, kind of just a master actor when he was at his best, and so much potential, and it's just so sad to see that it's just not. It is for me a bad film, and just a real shame that it doesn't hit the mark on most things, and it is pretty bad. So yeah, thanks for watching my review of Tim Burton's Dark Shadows.